Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Found Purpose. I'm your host, Cortland Fields. Let's get into it. Today, we will be talking with Chyrissee Lee. Chyrissee, thank you for stepping into our platform.
I appreciate the invitation, and I am extremely passionate about mental health, so I am happy to be present and participate in something that is so very necessary. Awareness is so key. Found Purpose audience, thank you for having me. My name is Chyrissee Lee. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and I've been a licensed therapist for over 15 years. I love and passionately work with our community's youth, and I feel like it's so important to have hands on not only the youth, but the family, and have everyone understand that if you have someone that's affected by mental health, you in turn will also be affected by mental health. So every opportunity I have to be with my clients, to be with their extended family and immediate family, the community organizations, I'm here for it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for that. That was an outstanding introduction of yourself. This is different for me because you're actually family, and it's hard interviewing family because you know the know. You know the backstory.
I understand.
So it's interesting. And I can't believe it's been 15 years. You've been a licensed therapist. Time goes by so fast.
I'm still 29. I don't understand how I'm...
You look amazing.
Here we are.
And if it serves me correctly, Miss Sacramento?
Mrs. California, actually.
Excuse me. Look at that, Mrs. California.
Yes. Another avenue of life. But yes, in 2001, I was crowned Mrs. California.
Wonderful. So, and the other reason why I'm glad, because you've been with me during my transformation as far as coming out the military, dealing with mental health, stuff like that, having a nervous breakdown.
Absolutely.
You also was going through your own things because we are family and we were going through family trauma all together. But to have someone in the family that can help you identify or help me identify what I was going through was very important for myself at a stage where I thought, okay, I got this. I've been through the hard stuff, but then hit with other things. You're like, where's all this coming from? Some of the things that I talked to you in the past, you have told me that you specialize in anxiety, depression, child and adolescence and stuff like that. Your expertise is sort of like with anger management, coping skills, CBT, EBT, DBT, I'm just joking. And as you mentioned, life coaching and peer relationships and stuff like that, self-esteem, and also trauma with PTSD.
All correct. One of my biggest specialties, actually, that you missed in that awesome feedback of what I do is eating disorders. I have found that when you're thinking about anxiety and depression, things we can't control, we really then dive into things that we can control, what we put in our mouth, what we drink, what we put in our bodies, what we do with our bodies. So a part of me being a licensed marriage family therapist, what differentiates me is I work with clients that are dealing with relationships. And it's not just relationships with another person. It could be your relationship with food, it could be a relationship with gambling, it could be your relationship with drugs and alcohol. It's about relationship and how to fine tune that relationship so it is healthy and not unhealthy.
Basically. So let's go through a few things to give the audience a general idea of what each section is. When you think of therapy, people think of, oh, you just go in and it's going to be a one-on-one and it's just that. Tell us about CBT.
So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically when you're thinking about CBT, which is something that I use on a regular basis, it's changing your cognitions, which means I'm changing my thoughts to then change my behavior, right? So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So part of that is, as a clinician, I'm focusing on, okay, Cortland, how are you thinking about that, right? Is it a rational thought or is it an irrational thought? And how we think about things determine how our emotional regulation, how we regulate emotions when things come into our situation, what our behavior looks like. And working with adolescents, one of my biggest comments, and I say it on the regular, is, hey, it doesn't matter. You can feel whatever you want to feel. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. I feel sad. I feel irritated. Every single emotion that you feel is 100% okay because that's how you're feeling. It's the behavior that follows it is where we see consequences, good, bad, or ugly. And I think working with adolescents and teenagers and young adults, being able to put that in a perspective for them makes it so much clearer, because in the Black community, we are taught that, you know, if you're a Black man, you can't be sad, you can't cry, you can't do all these things. So all of those emotions are stuffed, and eventually they come out in some way. It's either external, where I'm yelling at you, I'm getting in fights, I'm getting into altercations, or it's internal, where I might be drinking, I might be self-medicating, I might be suicidal. Right? Those emotions come out in some form or fashion. So the more that we are in touch with ourselves and we understand this isn't feeling okay, and understanding it's okay to not be okay, then that healing can begin, and you can recognize, why am I thinking about this? Is it something that happened to me in the past and I'm conditioned to this behavior, right? Or is it some trauma that I experienced and I'm suffering with PTSD and I just don't know how to verbalize what I'm feeling and what I need?
What's good about this is that we grew up in a big family, 7 aunts, 7 uncles. So we have a bunch of males, and I was part of that. Don't cry, get up, stand up, be a man, be tough. You know what I mean? And especially when we have a lot of cousins, and it's like balance with girls and guys. Even the girls was taught to be tough. There's one rule to be raised, and that's tough. However, I didn't know how to formulate my words because I didn't know what the emotion I was going through. Do you find that common with a lot of clients? And do you find that common with younger individuals? And how can we start the process of teaching young people about their emotions and identifying them?
Excellent question. And I actually deal with that quite a bit in my mental health private practice. It's really important to be able to not only think about why you're feeling what you're feeling, but also be able to recognize what emotion it is that we're feeling. And the third step in that is to identify it where you feel it in your body. Our bodies are amazing. Our minds are amazing. Your body is going to trigger you before you cuss somebody out. Your body is going to trigger you before you start sweating, about to have a panic attack. Your body is going to tell you. The idea is recognizing, hey, I feel something. I can't quite describe it, but I know what it is. So in sessions, when I'm dealing with young adults or adolescents, I find that I have to say, hey, what did that feel like? I felt stressed out. Oh, okay. Well, what did that feel like? Well, what do you mean? Well, what did it feel like in your body? Right? Did your shoulders go into your neck? Did you start sweating? Did you get this pit in your stomach? And now I'm throwing out trigger words that I know I've experienced myself, and everybody feels something different. So when I'm stressed, right, my neck goes to my shoulders and I lose my neck. And I don't realize that I'm stressed until I can exhale and the shoulders fall. And then I'm like, ooh, I was stressed. Our body's naturally going to do and trigger us in a way that's going to be effective for us. Some people get heart palpitations. Yes. Some people literally start sweating. My mouth got dry, Miss Chyrissee. Oh, okay. Let's talk about that. So guess what? The next time, and then I can identify what they're feeling together, right? And with young adults, it's hard to throw out a label because they're the generation of a label. You know, everyone's throwing, that person's bipolar, this person's that. So to me, it's you're having anxiety symptoms. You're having depressive symptoms. I'm not saying, oh, you have anxiety. Oh, you have depression. Oh, you might have bipolar. Let's keep looking. We all have depressive symptoms. We all have anxiety symptoms. It's how we're navigating and how bad they get before, as a clinician, I have to diagnose you because it's helping me set a plan for your success and in your recovery. So I do find that a lot, but being able to identify what that feeling is and where we feel it in our body helps determine triggers. And when we understand a trigger, then it allows us to prepare before the panic attack happens, before the anxiety attack happens, before the destructive, negative thought happens. Our body is going to be triggered.
November 29th, 2017, that's when I was put into the hospital because I had a nervous breakdown, and it felt like nothing I ever experienced before. It felt like I could not formulate or get anything together. It was like at that moment when you don't know, because I blacked out.
It's an out-of-body experience for sure, that disassociation, absolutely.
Yeah, I blacked out, and it was like, you were acting like this and you were saying this. And I was like, I do not recall none of that stuff that I was doing. I recall being in my office, and then from my office being in the hospital, it felt like I'm getting out of a sleep. Like I just woke up from something. I was like, what happened? I knew a state I was able to happen, but I don't recall when I had the blackout
Experiencing
and stuff
it,
like
yeah.
that. It's like, oh my gosh.
And again, the brain is an amazing thing. We're going to go to fight or flight. We're going to protective mode where your body is just, hey, how are we breathing? Are we staying? That's it. And I mean, I love you. You're bald, but people experience, my hair starts falling out. My nails start getting brittle because your body is not sending the neurons where it needs to be. It's protecting your heart, your lungs, and all your immediate body parts. And that's it, right? And that's it. We're in fight or flight. This is all, here we are. So the idea that your brain is protecting you and those feeling receptors that like, hey, you're just over here.
I just remember,
that's a positive thing.
I remember for myself, like after coming to and everything else, and I wouldn't say normalcy, but trying to figure me out again. It was like, I was always second guessing myself. Like, it's 2 and 2, 4. It was like not being sure of yourself anymore. And I tell people that was like one of the best things, but the worst things that could ever had happened to me. And I say that because I felt like I was able to get rid of everything that I was ever taught from a young age. And being that I'm transitioning out of the military after 20 years and trying to figure who I am again, because if you think about it, being in the military for 20 years, a lot of that is in me. And it's like, how do you just get rid of it? How do you just turn it off? And my assertiveness to people would just say, oh, you talk to me like I'm a child, or I'm not one of your soldiers. Like, and I don't mean it, but that's how it come across. So now stepping
that's been your structure for world, 2 decades.
Yeah. So trying to come back into the civilian lifestyle and say, okay, who am I? And that's why I say that's one of like the best things, because I felt like going into mental health, getting the proper care that I very much needed. Identify the emotion class. Oh my gosh. That was like my favorite class, the emotion class, because I would sit there, I was like, I went through that. Was that what I feel like? Yes, that's it right there. That's what it was. Yes. And when people say, oh, you void, I didn't know what voidance means. Like, you have a void. It's like, I don't have a void. Everything is here. I don't have a void. What's the void? And it was like, they put the terms together.
And it made sense. It's those aha moments that you experienced.
And what I realized, going back to EBT and DBT as well, and we'll explain what DBT is in a minute, but going back to that, able to put names to a feeling, helped me to express myself differently, which was able for me to do the cognitive thinking and DBT. And I'll let you take it from there, like what DBT is and all that good stuff.
So DBT is another one of my favorite, didactic behavior therapy, and it focuses a lot on emotional regulation and how we regulate our emotions. One of my favorite things that I learned in grad school, a lot of our emotions fall under the acronym HALT, H-A-L-T, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? So when I'm teaching those behaviors, it's so simple to take it down to like the minutia of things. If you're hungry, what do you do? Right? If you're angry, what can you do?
Ground yourself.
Right. Ground yourself. I can walk away. I can take deep breaths. I can do all these things. When we're lonely, we're seeking connection, right? So if I'm having depressive symptoms and I'm self-isolating and I don't really want to burden anybody with my troubles or whatever, I'm self-isolating, but I'm desiring and salivating for connection. Sometimes connecting with someone doesn't mean I need to tell you everything that's going on with me. Sometimes I just need someone to sit next to me, right? I just need to feel a body close to me. I need someone to give me a hug. It doesn't have to be, I'm ready to talk and put it all out there, right? And then the last one is T, it's tired, right? I'm tired, but sometimes anxiety keeps us up. Mania keeps us up, right? So we could have the craziest amount of insomnia and all we want to do is really sleep. Right? So when you talk about the connections in my role of therapy, hey, those relationships, I'm taking those medications because all I do is want to sleep. I'm taking these pills because all I do is want to feel or I don't want to feel. Right? So the DBT part of it is putting yourself in situations so you can manage your emotions in different de-stress tolerance, right? We all have certain levels of distress. How can we tolerate that? And part of that type of therapy is going through techniques and putting clients in certain situations where they can practice those de-stress tolerance moments. I have a client that's terrified to fly, and part of my training with her was, hey, we're going to drive to the airport. Okay, we're going to sit and we're going to watch the planes go back and forth. And then that's the session for the day. Next time, we're going to go in and we're going to park and we're going to walk in. right? So we worked and worked and worked over months and months and months because she wanted to be able to go on this big trip with her best friends from high school and college. But her fear was not going to let her have that. So we had to focus on the distress was the flight, right? And her being able to tolerate it. What can you do to make sure that you can level yourself so you can take this flight to be able to have a good time with your friends? Right? So everybody is different. And I work with a lot of ADHD kids. So the impulsivity isn't their fault, but at the same time, you can recognize when you're just blurting out the answer, or you are throwing a paper, or you're pushing something off someone else's desk. And you think about adults that have ADHD, you can't do the things that you did in elementary school and middle school and not have consequences for losing your job or getting a divorce because you can't stay in your relationship and things like that. So that de-stress tolerance is so important. It's okay to be mad or upset or want to be able to jump in and say you're part of it because you don't want to forget. But then guess what? Everyone in my practice has a little notebook. Write it down. Practice writing it down, right? And then, okay, hey, Cortland, what do you feel about that? Now, I don't remember what I felt because I have listened to 10 people tell me what they felt, but I wrote it down. Hey, Chyrissee, I found that when I read that book, Found Purpose, blah, 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 blah. But I wrote it down because I knew that I wouldn't be able to recall it like I wanted to.
Right.
But I practiced not interrupting. And it's something so minuscule. Let's not interrupt. And that could be the straw breaking the camel's back for a lot of people that don't know how to regulate the emotions, so they don't interject. And it's not to be rude. It's just, I don't want to forget what I want to say as part of that conversation. But 99% of the time, it comes off as, you're so rude, you're interrupting, or I don't want to even mess with you because this, that, and the other. But the intention isn't malicious. It's a part of their cognitive development.
I run into a lot of people, and I had a bad habit of interrupting people because I had to get it out because I will forget. And I have ADHD, but it's like, I will forget. And it's like, I'm talking. But it's like what you said, I had to write it down, say it 3 times in my head quickly and say, okay, I'm listening. So I can repeat what I had. So as I was saying before, it's like you meet a lot of people that has that need to just interrupt you to talk. It does come across as them being rude. It's like, dude, why are you so rude? You keep on interrupting me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I didn't want to forget what I was going to say. So you interrupted me, so I forget what I'm going to say. And like, make it make sense.
What's really interesting when you say that, yes, it's rational in your mind, but if you think about true levels of communication and having a genuine understanding and empathy for someone that you're speaking with, people either listen to respond or they listen for understanding, right? Someone that's listening for understanding, I'm hearing you, I'm taking it in, I'm either empathetic, meaning I've never experienced that, but I can only imagine, right? Or I'm sympathetic with you. I've been in that same situation. Yes, I totally understand, right? But then you have what I call third word arguers who are listening to grab onto that one word so they can argue that one word and not your whole entire approach to what you're talking about. As a marriage family therapist, you deal with relationships. So I will have family members, I will have couples. He doesn't listen, she doesn't listen. And I say, okay, well, talk about this. And then I listen if they listen for understanding or if they listen to just respond. And 99% of the time, there's one partner that is listening for understanding. I'm going to hear you, but they don't ever feel heard. And then that 1% of the time, the rest of the time, it is I'm listening to that third word and then I'm arguing the third word. And then you grab onto my third word and you're arguing the third word, but there's no solution. It's an argument and someone walks away or it explodes. That issue never gets solved. We go to bed and then we wake up the next day, something else happens. I'm still mad about yesterday and now we're arguing about something else. So now it's compounded.
Because I'm still thinking from yesterday.
Exactly. So being able to teach levels of communication and understanding what healthy communication means, we don't have to agree at all. I want you to feel heard and I want to feel heard. We can agree to disagree at the end, right? Or we have a compromise solution where, Cortland, I know you really like to play Monopoly, but I really want to play chess. Right? Okay, well, you're super passionate about, so let's play Monopoly as the first game, and then the second game we'll play chess. It's an easy fix, but some people will flip the table, and we're not playing anything because you're not playing what I want to play. That is the cycle that leads to elevated anxiety, elevated connection, elevated depressive thinking because people aren't feeling heard whether you agree with me or not.
a lot of times, family, friends, relationship, any type of relationship, one, it don't even have to so much be a word. It's like they grabbing a phrase that you said. And like, I'm big on words and what you say, how you say it. Because I like facts. I don't like doing the logical
That's the facts,
speaking. I'm not doing
yeah.
logical. Just give me the facts, give me black and white. Because at the end of the day, for me, that's all it is facts. And I was having a conversation with somebody and I was saying, you have logic, but then you have facts. And when you're in the military, I always had to be factual. I could not be logical because you are jeopardizing hundreds of people's lives by your logic and you don't have facts. So every time I go through something, I have to fact check. It's not that I don't believe what you're saying, but I'm so prone with 20 years of fact checking because it's like, okay, these are the requirements to join the military. And you can have a high school diploma and a high school transcript or a college transcript. However, facts dictate that there are people in this world that will give you a fraudulent transcript. But if I go and verify each and every last person one by one, I'm not discriminating against nobody, and I'm fact checking everything. So it's like when I come to you and say, you don't have this, I fact checked it. It's you don't have it. That's wrong. I say that to say because I'm big on words, and that's where it comes, big on words and what you say and what you tell me. Other people seem to go, well, you know what I meant. How do you deal with people and how do you correct that when you go, well, you know what I meant? No, I know what you said, but I don't know what you meant.
A great part of that, and for me teaching communication, I can listen to what you're saying, right? And another great phrase that I say is impact is not the same as intent, right? My intention was to inform you of X, Y, and Z, but I cussed you out in the process. So the impact that it had on me, I don't care what you said. I only can pay attention to how it made me feel, right? So that paying attention to what people are saying is important. And part of my communication piece in my therapy sessions are understanding what someone is saying by reframing. Hey, Cortland, I just want to make sure I understand what you said. So, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah, I said that, but what I meant was, so now before I react and respond, I am asking for clarification. Did I hear what you said correctly? Are my own biases in play right now? Right? Because I know how I might feel about something. We all have biases that we keep internally, but am I listening to you correctly? Did you say what I thought you said? Right? Because what we say may not be what we mean. I'm not a mind reader. I can't read your mind and be like, oh yeah, I know him for however long. I knew what he meant. No, I don't, unless I ask for clarification so I understand.
I always find myself trying to correct myself, even now. How do you develop a technique to just make sure you're saying your complete thought so it's coming across to the receiver?
Slow down. I say slow down. And what I mean by that is when someone is talking to you, going back to the listening for understanding and listening to respond, when someone says something to you, natural conversation is, I'm going to jump in when that person takes a breath or takes a pause. That's my window of opportunity to jump in, right? I try to teach my clients, you listen, and then when they're done, and then you say, was there anything else that you wanted to add? Right? No, I'm good. Now you've completely given me the floor to dissect anything and everything that you said. So I make sure that I understand what you're talking about. Right? So when I communicate with somebody, my friends and people really close to me, when I'm done, I say, did that make sense? So now I'm giving you an opportunity to reframe to me what I just said. So I make sure that what I'm trying to say is what I actually articulated, right? And I want to make sure the way that I articulated it is landing on you and your mind the way that I wanted it to. I'm going to give you an excellent example. So your second cousin, my child, had to take a test. And the test was a cognitive, just the facts. What did you read? Comprehension, understanding. Okay. The story was called The Red Whale. Okay. There's a passage about the red whale, and then you're answering questions, right? The very first question was, in such and such author's book, The Red Whale, what color was the whale? My child picked blue. And I was like, right? But the more and more I got into just the facts and logic, right? The facts of that story were the whale was red. It's just what it was, right? Logically, Are we seeing red whales in the ocean? No, we see blue whales, right? So logically, he was 100% correct and argued it.
And stay true, right?
100% factual, right? But that wasn't what was being asked. So when you think about that mindset of, hey, it's only black and white, there are always shades of gray in there. How our minds process to come up with an answer and respond are different based on different types of development, education, right? Experiences. What's that reference to me in regards to anything breast cancer or cancer related? Well, I perk up because you know my history, right? So when people are very generic or dismissive of it, I'm kind of like, okay, I want to know more. What was your experience? Because my experience was either similar or completely different. But I'm intrigued because I want to know.
You touch on a good subject because when you think about the red whale and you're just reading it, his name could have been red. His name could have been red, but technically he's blue. So I understand where he's coming from and I see his point of view, because if you don't have no pictures and it is not in front of you, then his name could have been.
You're going off your reference and your knowledge.
Right. Sometimes people put out this expectation. This is how I want you to talk because this is how I was brought up and raised, and that's not true. And I feel like I'm a really smart guy. However, my love language was off, but it has upgraded. It's not where I want it to be. But I know I have improved over the years of learning more about my emotions and things like that. And you could be saying the same thing that your partner is saying and get into this big argument because it's coming across differently. And that's the whole thing about slowing down and stopping to like, what are you hearing that I'm saying? When you have men that are too prideful, what can you tell them to like break that pride? Because my thing is, this is your wife, or this is your husband, this is your child, this is your mom, this is your dad. I'm not no friend in the street. Invest in me. When you go to jail or something happened to you, I'm going to be right there, even though you just cursed me out, but I'm going to be right there to make sure you good and make sure nothing happened. How can we get men to understand like, hey, they're not your friend. Like, you're supposed to be really loyal to the ones that have your back, and these are your priorities. Like, they should come first. How do you tell people, or what advice can you give men to say, or even women?
I honestly start every session with every new client by saying all behavior is purposeful, right? So whatever we do, every behavior is for a reason. So when people say, oh, I don't know why that happened, yes, you do. We're going to break it down because every behavior is purposeful. I needed attention. I was upset. I was hurt. So I wanted that person to be hurt. Every behavior is purposeful. So when I let that marinate and sink in for a minute, you can be upset and you don't want to feel any less of a man because you were wrong. Guess what? Strength lies in being able to be accountable for our behavior.
Exactly.
Please, thank you, I'm sorry, and I love you are the most magical words in the English language, right?
Definitely.
I'm going to respect you and love you more if you're like, you know what? I'm so sorry that I came at you this way. I didn't sleep good. I had a bad day at work and I took it out on you and that was not okay. Please accept my apology. I love you and now we're good, right? I'm here for that 100% of the time. You will constantly have people that are loyal to you and love you and want to communicate to work through the hard times. If you can be accountable for your behavior. If there's narcissism and it's everybody else's fault, then it's going to be very difficult for us to continue to have a conversation, because eventually I'm going to get to my threshold and I'm going to be like, you know what? I'm going to love you from afar, but I'm going to be over here, but I'm good. You no longer have access to me the way that you used to because I'm not doing this with you. Your behavior can no longer be my responsibility. So every behavior is purposeful. It's for a reason that we act the way that we do.
Going back to what I was saying is that when you play the blame game, why is it that a person cannot accept what they did? Why can't they comprehend that every action causes a reaction? Why did this person do this? A person that you love and care for and who's with you, family, friends, or whatever, they don't do something unless it's an action. Action had to be caused for you to get a reaction.
Narcissism is such a loaded weapon when you think about narcissistic characteristics, we all have that, right? All of us have this piece that we want the world to revolve around us, and that's natural. When the lack of empathy for other people's feelings and what they believe, we have trigger words that are circulating on the regular, like, oh, I was gaslighted. That's part of narcissism. And what is unfortunate about that is it is twofold. It's about control of someone else and a very low self-esteem. So those people that you see that are diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, they don't have positive connections. They don't have a great base of friendships. So chances are they're lonely. Chances are their self-esteem is lower. So if I can make you feel bad, then that's going to pump my self-esteem up instead of me doing something out of gratitude or generosity that we know naturally fills our cup back up in a positive way. Not being told no or they're wrong. Now I'm going to argue with you. I'm going to tell you that's not how it was. I'm going to make you feel bad. I'm going to tell people bad things about you to try to and destroy your relationship with that person to isolate you. So I'm the only person that you have. So no matter how bad I treat you, I'm the only one you got. So you have to stay with me. Right? So it's this vicious circle that unless you understand it or have been in it, you won't realize it until you're looking from the outside in, all the things that you dealt with and how great they were at manipulating you to feel, do, or be the way that they wanted you to be. So the term narcissistic abuse is coming out over the past several years. It is going to be in the DSM because it actually is a type of abusive behavior.
Precisely.
And there's a lot of covert narcissists in the world where in person they're great and everyone thinks they're wonderful, but behind closed doors, they're not hitting you, right? There's no bruises. You start to see the financial abuse. You start to see the intellectual abuse. And people don't see that because when you hear the word abuse, you hear, I'm looking for broken bones, black eyes, whatever. But if you get a certain amount of money every month and you run out and we're wealthy and you get a card and your card, you don't have access to cash, but I give you a black card. But on the black card, I control what you spend and I look at what you spend and I come and say, Cortland, did you really need those Louis Vuitton shoes? Like you better go to Target and get this, this, and this. Now I'm controlled. But everyone looking outside at me sees me living this best life and I'm happy and the kids are going to the best schools and this, that, or the other. But here I am not able to think for myself, even though I'm smart, not being able to provide and buy things, right? Unless you say it's okay. That's
because we're going up because I got to be your trophy or something. So now I have to look the part. But when I'm not looking the part, when I'm not around you, it's okay for me to be basic. And that is so weird. The other thing that's weird to me is about when we touched on empathy and narcissism. And empathy is totally different from people that just like don't show empathy. They just don't have no type of empathy, or I feel like they disassociate themselves with empathy or detach themselves emotionally where they don't feel.
With empathy, again, I can imagine what it feels like to be in that situation, right? People that lack empathy, they don't even care that you are in that situation. They don't even want to put themselves in a possibility that they could ever be in that situation. So my energy is going to be focused on, that's not really a big deal. Like, that's an overreaction. Why are you like this, that, or the other? Like my dog died. I get that a lot. People are like, it's a dog. People love their dogs. I live in California. You know, people love their dogs on the West Coast and their animals. So if you were to say that, now those are like fighting words, right?
Exactly.
The idea of me not even caring enough to put myself in your shoes goes a long way. It can be very scary sometimes that you're talking about you and you say, hey, Chyrissee, that workout I did today with my trainer was really hard, right? And then I go, yeah, I had this workout and I feel like I worked out a little too much and I'm going to go to the doctor because I think I might have a brain tumor and blah, 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 blah. So now it goes from you saying, hey, I had a hard workout to now it's back to being all about me. And now I'm taking it to the next level where I have all these ailments and I need to tell you about my ailments every single time. Hey, Cortland, how are you? I have to have a CAT scan tomorrow. So they want people to feel sorry for them, right? But then in reverse, I don't have the empathy to even give you, I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm automatically going to make your situation about how my situation that I'm in is worse than your situation. So I'm negating everything you're dealing with and I'm making it about me.
This has been another episode of Found Purpose. Remember, your spirit is never too broken, shattered, or damaged where it can't be fixed. Put God first and everything is fixable. Let's start healing in the spirit.